Okay, folks, welcome back. And in this section, we are ready to begin provisioning our Kubernetes clusters, and we're going to accomplish this through Tanzu Mission Control, one of the VMware cloud services. Now, there's two ways to manage and maintain the lifecycle of our clusters with TMC. And the first is to provision them from scratch. And that's exactly what we're going to do with our AWS Kubernetes clusters. We're going to need 3 EKS clusters so that we can install Tanzu Application Platform, or TAP. We'll need TAP View, TAP Build, and TAP Run EKS. Now, it's on this cluster that we are hosting our front-end web MVC application. Now, this application is then going to make back-end calls to web APIs, and these are hosted on a single Azure Kubernetes cluster, or AKS. Now, we're not going to provision this cluster from TMC, but we're going to create it with the Azure CLI, and then we will import it, okay, or attach it into Tanzu Mission Control. And this is to simulate probably the majority of use cases out there, where we see organizations having production workloads running already on a variety of different platforms and such. Maybe some are running on premises, on vSphere, and some on public cloud. And they want to bring all of them into a consistent and intuitive interface such as TMC. All right, so with that refresher then out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look now at Tanzu Mission Control and see what it's all about. You'll see here that I am logged into my VMware Cloud Services account under the NYC Pivot organization, and you'll need your own account if you're following along. So let's go ahead and launch TMC. So what we'll do in the portal is first discuss briefly a value proposition and what Tanzu Mission Control has to offer us, right? And my initial idea was to create all of the resources that we need for this series from an automation script. But I decided that what I'll do is I'll create all of those resources in the portal first, and that'll give me an opportunity to kind of go through some of the things that we'll need to look at and get more of a visual perspective. And I think that will help us understand the automation script much better. Then when we have showed everything that we've wanted here in the portal, I'll delete all of these resources, and in the next video, we'll do it all over again from the automation script. So Tanzu Mission Control is a single control plane dashboard of sorts where we can manage and maintain the life cycle and configure our Kubernetes clusters in one place, okay? And this brings a lot of benefit and value to customers and organizations who need to hire, especially those who have resources and are taking advantage of services across multiple cloud providers. They have a hybrid type of environment where they're using on-premise data centers as well. And they have to have teams of experts who really know how to navigate and perform operations in these different environments, right? In vSphere, vCenter, then you've got the public clouds and their respective portals and consoles and CLIs, and it just can become quite overwhelming. Well, when we get resources created in here, we'll see just how easy all of this becomes in TMC. So the first thing that we're going to do is need a cluster group. So I'll go ahead and create a cluster group. And the point of a cluster group is to group clusters. Now, why would I do that? Well, think of it as groups and user accounts. It is so much easier to administer users that constitute a group, all right? So if I want to apply access policies and so on, I would do that at the group level. This is the exact same concept with Kubernetes clusters in cluster groups. I can apply an access policy, a quota policy at a group level and have that applied and inherited by all the clusters within that group, regardless of their respective platforms. Okay, they could be any of the 3 public cloud providers, as we've discussed, or on premises. And we can have, by the click of a button, that policy applied down the chain. Now, before we create clusters, the next thing that we have to do is create a credential. So for our purposes, we want TMC to spin up resources in our AWS account. I would create a credential for AWS EKS in order for TMC to access my account and spin up these EKS clusters that we're provisioning from scratch, right? So TMC will use its own private AWS account and access my account, or your account if you're following along, via cross-account access, right? And that is done through IAM roles. So let's go ahead and get this going here. I'll give that credential name of AWS account credential, click next. And what TMC is going to do is generate a CloudFormation template for us. And we can go in and view this template, but all it contains is the roles, pretty much, that are necessary for the TMC AWS account to assume when it goes into our account to provision resources. So it's going to generate a URL for us. So we click next, and it's going to generate this URL. And you can see that it goes to this TMC specific endpoint. And so this is where the CloudFormation template can be downloaded. So we'll come over here to our AWS console. We'll open up Cloud Shell for simplicity, and we'll run it from here. Okay, so once we get the prompt, we can paste that command in. And that is going to create our stack, which is going to create the IAM roles necessary for the TMC AWS account to access our account. Now, that account ID that TMC is using is that account ID right there. Now, if you look at my account ID, okay, it's a completely different account. So that is how TMC is operating behind the scenes. Now, another thing that's important for us that we'll discuss, not yet, is this ID. Okay, so this ID is not a randomly generated ID, but it's based on the name, and it will always be the same ID, whatever name. So if I give it the same name again and again, I'll consistently get this ID. And so that's perfect for us when we're trying to automate this. All right, so we executed that. And then the next thing that TMC needs from us is the ARN of this cluster lifecycle role that has been created by the stack. So we'll come back over here to Cloud Shell, run this command, and we'll grab this ARN, paste it in there, and that is it. And so now TMC is in the business of creating our AWS account credential. Now, this is going to take somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes, so we will be right back as soon as this is finished.